Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. In this video, I'm going to take a look at Candyman, the Candyman trailer, which has been released this year. The film was supposed to be released in June, but it got postponed because of the pandemic coronavirus until I think September. However, the trailer is still interesting. It is a Jordan Peele produced film. Jordan Peele, of course, was the writer and director of Get Out, which we've already analyzed, and Us, which is on my to-do list. And this is also, unsurprisingly, rather interesting, has some things that indicate that this film, when it's finally released, will probably have a lot to quote-unquote decode. But even in the trailer, there's some things we can see that just show that the annular eclipse on June 21st and the buck moon appear to be in mind in making this as well, or actually are pretty clearly in mind in this trailer represented here. Before I get into that, I want to go ahead and mention that I'm still working on the long video that's good for introducing anybody to the topics, even if they have no background in conspiracies or the occult elite or understanding anything that's going on. If they're not even awake, it's a good way to help them wake up, hopefully, God willing. And I've been working on it pretty hard. I'm almost done, and I'll be releasing it soon. I figured I'd release this in the meantime without editing and cleaning it up, just because it's pretty short and simple. So before I get to that, one last thing, BitChute. I have a BitChute channel now. This is where I'll be posting my videos as well as on YouTube. If for whatever reason YouTube decides they don't want my content on their platform anymore, well, if you've subscribed there, you'll be able to find me. And so I really do hope that you'll take a moment to go over there and subscribe. If you don't have a BitChute account yet, it's pretty easy to set up. You go over, sign up, and then subscribe. And you'll also not just find me over there. A lot of channels are doing this. They're backing up their channels on BitChute. And so if you check your other favorite channels out and ask them if they have a BitChute account, you can probably find where theirs is at. Go ahead and subscribe to several people's accounts at one time. And that way you'll have your list of channels that you really like to follow, even if something happens on YouTube where censorship or whatever, for whatever reason, channels disappear or stop functioning. Okay? So I hope you'll take a minute to do that. It's not long, 3-4 minutes, and you can probably get a lot of your favorite channels subbed over there. You can get subbed to them. So, Candyman. This is a sequel to a film from the 90s, and it is, well, a Jordan Peele produced film. And right away at the very beginning, we start to see our hints of the buck moon and the annular eclipse. For people who aren't familiar, in Encoded 2, there is a buck moon and an annular eclipse in the classroom calendar. So we have this calendar, and this is 2020, and that's January, February, March, all the way over here. Here's your annular eclipse. She's representing the eclipse. She's the moon. She's a feminine principle. She's white, and she's on the yellow ring, making a ring of fire annular eclipse between June and July. So she is the June 21st annular eclipse in 2020. Right after her is this buck rabbit. That's a male rabbit, a buck, also a buck over here. That represents the buck moon, also can be called the stag moon. That's the July full moon. And so in Encoded 2, throughout the film, we have more or less, things are getting a little rough, but they're more or less tranquil up until the buck moon. And after the buck moon, we get chaos and ivy. That's all a wild mess over here, as opposed to this well-kept grass. Okay, and so we have this big change around the buck moon. And the buck moon is associated with catastrophe and apocalypse in many different films. For example, in Knowing, we've seen this was a film that was all about the apocalypse and a solar flare that is eventually going to destroy the entire world and wipe out mankind, except for a few selected to be saved. And in that, we have the vision. This boy sees a vision from the Whisperer. He points him over to this window, and the window, of course, is an annular eclipse. You see the eclipsed sun depicted there. It's a ring of fire. The boy goes over, looks in the ring of fire into this eclipse, and what does he see through it? He sees the stag moose, or a stag, come out, and that is burning in fire. Okay, and the film goes on later and shows the actual apocalypse, and right behind the Nicolas Cage character is a buck. The moment that a buck painting or drawing or sketch on the wall, the moment the world ends and the fire consumes them, and the date was, there's a clock with 7-5 indicated on it. So we have that. Then we saw in Get Out, which is a Jordan Peele film. We saw on the cover that we had Get Out with two different fonts. We did gematria here, and we saw that the G, E, T are 7, 5, 20, and we saw the O, U, T is 15. You put those together, you get a 6. U, 21, 20, and so you get 7, 5, 20. That's the buck moon date, and you had 6, 21, 20. That's the annular eclipse date, and the font matches. The Get has a moon font, a lunar font. It looks like the moon surface. And the Out looks like an outline, like an annular eclipse. And so we saw that Jordan Peele is using this gematria in order to communicate the dates of these big events coming. Not necessarily that there's going to be an event exactly on those dates, but if you're here when these dates are there, I think is his point, you're in the wrong place. So get out. And so Jordan Peele has this in mind. So when we go to Candyman, it's not surprising to find right at the beginning, after a brief, looking briefly at the city of Chicago skyline or something, actually a bridge, we see her. And look at her jewelry. There it is. And that is a black sun eclipse. Looks like a ring of fire, right? Oops. You see the fire going around, black in the middle, and what is making it black? A buck. It's the moon in front of it. But the moon is going to be the buck moon that comes after it. So the moon's going to separate, and you're going to have the buck moon. If you look closely, there it is. Okay, very clearly, we have a buck or a stag with the eclipse in a single piece of jewelry. Pretty creative. Over here, that would be like looking out the window, seeing your annular eclipse, and what do you see in it? Well, you see the buck, or the stag in this case. So there you have it. Now, in Candyman, so that right there's a red flag, says start looking for things. In Candyman, of course, is the killer, the one who haunts people. People say his name 5 times in a mirror, and he comes out and he kills them because they doubted him, and he's trying to keep his memory alive because he was murdered brutally in a horrible way in the 19th century. And he is he was a black man who was a free man at the time, but he was killed in a, like I said, cruel way. They cut his hand off, and then they poured honey on him and had bees sting him to death. And he haunted the world so that his crime presumably would be remembered. And anybody who doubted him and showed they doubted him by daring to say his name 5 times in a row into a mirror, well, he'd come out and kill them. And he said, he was an artist, and he said, I am the writing on the wall. And what's interesting is the photographer takes a picture, and we get this very quick shot of Candyman on the wall. He's the writing on the wall, or on the wall. But look closely, what else is on the wall? He's the writing on the wall. He's when, well, vengeance comes from those who've been oppressed, apparently, something like that, comes to get you if you've forgotten them or don't care about their plight and their mistreatment in the past. And here we have, what? 7, 5. We also get it twice, 7, 5. And we get 7, 4. So we get like a sequence, 7, 4, 7, 5. And that's probably not coincidental. Well, I know it's not coincidental. They didn't make this scene accidentally. This is to say they're right. I'm the writing on the wall, and then the scene where they actually paint Candyman. They're not going to have useless just stuff over here, I don't think. So this is meaningful. It's not just a coincidence, especially since we know he has these dates in mind. But when you add to it, he's the writing on the wall, and we do this gematria again. I'm learning to do this for you guys. Okay, I'm not sure how much I like to build into it, but I know it's interesting sometimes, and they seem to use it. And I know Jordan Peele does because he did it right there. Okay, so he was doing this sort of thing. But look, Candyman is what? 75. He's the writing on the wall. That's a 7-5. He's the writing on the wall. He's the 75. We're also saying, though, the dates, 7-4 and 7-5. And so when we take a look and we see somewhere else, notice how this 4 is written. It's the circle with the 4 in it like a target almost. Go over here. We see here's Candyman supposedly depicted with his mouth open, swallowing people. And look right down here. There's your 4, the 7-4, with a gigantic bomb around it. It's the bomb. The explosion, 7-4. And up here, you have this J, the die on a 4, and 4F, which is just for fun. I've read that this is how graffiti artists sometimes represent just for fun, but also has, in the context of the 4 here, in the bomb, with the art, knowing that it's a 7-4 with a 7-5, July 4th. You can sort of feel July 4th. And so here, again, it looks like we're matching up pretty well with the iPet Goat 2 and other sources that show that around the buck moon, perhaps just before the buck moon, which we've seen over and over again, possibly July 4th, possibly July 3rd, possibly July 2nd, I don't know. I'm not picking a date. But here it looks like they have July 4th and a bomb. But what's interesting is with the narrative of Candyman, what's it about? It's about a black man who was murdered by white people in the past, and the crimes were forgotten, and he's rising up against anyone who dares treat him like that was unimportant. And given current events, perhaps that's when the riots, quote unquote, explode, and you get your divided United States, even more with actual violence. Just an idea, no promises here, but something worth considering and thinking about. So this may tell us a lot in this brief trailer. All right, like, subscribe, share. Have a good day. Take care.